Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel. Big up to everyone over on Chelsea Fan TV as well. And welcome to another live stream and your daily transfer update. First things first, guys, make sure you smash the likes on both channels. Subscribe to both channels as well if you haven't done so already. And let's get this show on the road. One thing I must mention before we start is all the best to Ben Chua, whose dad sadly passed away yesterday, I believe. The news coming out today. So hopefully everything's okay with him. Wishing him all the best in a difficult time for him. But moving swiftly on to transfer news. Obviously, Loftus-Cheek and Mateo Kovacic, we knew they were leaving, but those deals have officially been done and dusted. Kova unveiled as a new Manchester City number 8. Loftus-Cheek not been unveiled at Milan yet, but that's all agreed for a £15 million fee. Inter Milan trying to shortchange us for Lukaku. Nothing's new there. Also, AC Milan trying to mug us off for Christian Pulisic as well, only wanting to give us 15 mil and we want about 25 mil. So there's a bit of a gap in valuation, but doing business with Italian sides is notoriously pretty difficult. There's interest from West Ham for Callum Hudson-Odoi, as well as Fulham and Brentford as well. And what else have we got to get into? Obviously, personal terms have been agreed with Moises Caicedo. Just got a sort of fee out now. But other than that, I think that's pretty much where we're at with the Chelsea news. Obviously, Mason Mount crunch talks this week as well regarding his future. But, mate, let's get into it. Obviously, I know for me, I don't really care about these sort of things, but it seems to have caused a slight, well, I say a slight stir. Some people maybe not particularly pleased about it. I mean, Kovacic's goodbye statement. I don't really mind about it. It wasn't a goodbye statement. It was something else. It was about, this bit here. It's been an incredible pleasure to play for such a great club and win some of the biggest trophies in the sport. Chelsea's a club I've loved every second of being at, but the time has come for me to move on. It's been a tough 12 months for everyone. I think we can all agree it hasn't been the usual Chelsea standards, but I've enjoyed my time here in London. That wasn't actually what I was wanting to talk about. It was the other bit when he was going for City and he was like kind of going on about, it's now time for me to win. Now I don't really care that much about that. He's not a Chelsea player anymore. It doesn't really bother me, but it's not really, some people not best pleased or not best pleased with it. Maybe they need to get outside a little bit more, have a bit more time away from Twitter. But I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Do you strike that as a bit of a strange thing to say? Maybe could be viewed as a little bit disrespectful, possibly.
Maybe a little bit, but at the same time, he's got to build some kind of relationship and rapport with the fans of the club he's actually going to be at. So I do see why why he's doing it, and City have won more than we have recently. I know it's a little bit of a short memory because we only won the Champions League a couple seasons ago. But City have been far more successful in the last 5 years than we have. And so with him going there, I guess the way he would see it is there is a greater opportunity to win titles there.
Yeah. No,
I don't really like it. I think it is a little bit disrespectful personally, but I mean, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about it.
No, for sure. And I think, ultimately, I think this deal suits all parties well anyway. Like, at the end of the day, Kovacic didn't want to be here either. And as we've said many times before, and people always go, are we selling to quote-unquote rivals? Ultimately, the Premier League are going to give us the biggest financial gain on our players. Like, maybe we could have sold Kovacic to Italy if he maybe we could have done, but ultimately we'd be lucky to get 15 million for him from one of those Italian sides. So like whether people like it or not, the Premier League with its financial power is going to give us the most money for our players, and if that means we have to sell certain players to other teams that we're competing against, then that's kind of the trade-off that you've got to take. But ultimately, like, for me, Kovacic didn't want to be here anyway. He said that it was time for a new challenge. So, well, what do we do? Keep a player that doesn't want to be here? That's the sort of thing we were trying to move away from, because we've had too many of those.
Or lose him for free as well,
Or lose him for free. So I think he only had a year left on the contract as well, didn't he? So, like, it doesn't really make much sense to keep him about. I mean, just briefly, mate, 5 seasons at the club. Obviously, won Champions League, Europa League, Club World Cup, and the Super Cup. How do you view his time at the club? Do you think joined under the transfer ban? Obviously, that season he had on loan beforehand, I thought it was absolutely fucking terrible. And when we signed him for 40 mil, I was like, oh Jesus, well, what are we doing here? And to me, the funny thing is, mate, I actually don't think we would have signed him permanently if we didn't have the transfer ban, because his loan was awful. But actually, in fairness to him, he has done pretty well and has played a big part in our recent success.
Yeah, poor loan initially, it's fair to say, but he kind of grew into the role, I think, a little bit. he did well, especially well sort of as like a supplementary midfielder next to Kante or next to Jorginho. He couldn't necessarily run things by himself, and he was quite the specialist. So that, he was, he wasn't a very well-rounded footballer, I think it's fair to say. And outside of maybe one phenomenal season for us, I don't really think he's been worth what we paid for him. Really, personally, it's been nice and it's been pretty and there's been flashes of good stuff and scored some good goals. Absolutely,
couple of worldies.
yeah, exactly. Only scores screamers, so that's nice. But I don't know. I think I would have expected a bit more output from him overall. But I mean, I'm not going to hold that against him personally. I think he was a good servant to the club, for 6 years or so.
Yeah, I think we've got 5 years out. I mean, he was voted Player of the Year in the 1920 season. But as you say, like obviously, it's more than just output. Footballers aren't just defined on their output, but it's fair to say, output in midfield is quite important in my opinion. And ultimately, yes, to replace other parts of his game could be quite difficult, but I don't think it's going to be particularly tough to replace his output. I think he got 6 goals and 15 assists in over 200 appearances for the club. So from an output point of view, I don't think we're gonna miss him at all, because that's not a good enough level of output. But other aspects of the game, I think we will. But as just to kind of close this little segment out on Cover, is that I think we can do a lot better, and that's not being disrespectful to him. I think it just come to the point. 29, 30. Yes, he's still got some good years ahead of him, for sure. But it's time that we revamped. We did a lot better. And mate, would you be surprised if I told you that the only player left from the 18-19 squad is Kepa? Everyone else is gone.
No, that doesn't surprise me, because we've had a lot of change in the last season or two. Yeah, I think we will struggle to find someone who has as strong a winning mentality as Cover. And I think we'll struggle as well to find someone who would go to war for the club like Cover did, especially, in terms of like when there's a scrap going down. But other than that, yeah, I think we probably could do better in terms of sort of pure output. But like you say, it's not just about output.
No, absolutely not. Mendy to Saudi is done. We're just waiting for the official statements. That'll probably be done tomorrow. Need Lukaku out ASAP. Yes. Spurs never sailed to Chelsea or Arsenal, but here we are gifting all our players. Well, not gifting. I mean, they're not good enough for us. So ultimately, they're either surplus to requirements or they want to leave. So ultimately,
most of them that we have sold to our rivals haven't done very well. Czech struggled, Willian struggled, Jorginho struggled.
I mean, I think there's part of Spurs never sell to Chelsea. Well, Spurs don't tend to sell to Chelsea because Spurs generally we're not that interested in any of Spurs players because they're not really that good. And then obviously Harry Kane, unfortunately, would just never happen. But I think Spurs.
Daniel Levy just hates us, so he just doesn't want to do it. There was discussion of. I remember there was talks between Chelsea and Spurs about Mendy a little while ago.
And then with Ziyech as well, possibly, weren't there?
And Ziyech potentially. So there is some discussions going on there, but I can't imagine we'd be able to take someone like Kane off them. I just don't think they'd allow it.
Even if we put £100 million on the table, they would still reject it. I even think we could put 150, 160 down, and we'd still get a no.
Yeah, you may well. Yeah, exactly.
It's just one of those things. But yeah, obviously Cover's gone. Wish him well, not too well, of course, in the nicest way possible. Touched on it yesterday, but it's now fully confirmed. Loftus-Cheek is going to AC Milan. I think that'll be a really good move for him. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, I think he's been great for Chelsea in terms of, all right, it's not pulled up any trees by any accounts, but over 150 appearances, kind of the first guy to really break through from the academy into the first team since JT. Always dependable, played in wherever you put him on the pitch, did a solid job. Obviously, the injury ruined things, but yeah, I don't think you can have really any complaints about Ruben as a Chelsea player. I mean, do you think 15 million quid, possibly rising to about close to 20 with add-ons, do you think that's a fair price for him? I think he's going into the last year of his contract as well.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, anything kind of represents pure profit because he's from the academy, and I think that's why a lot of people were really happy about his contributions to Chelsea overall, because it cost us nothing, and actually 150 appearances, had some good, some good innings and some not so good innings. overall did well as a bit part player in the squad, but really realistically next season he's probably getting nowhere near the starting midfield positions, and he's certainly not going to start at right wing back over Reece or probably Gusto either. So I think it's time for him to move on and, to get some game time and actually play football, and I think the Italian league will suit his game really well, especially sort of the pace of the game over there's a little bit slower, and I think it allows him to use his body a little bit more and his dribbling ability. Not to mention he's got friends over there as well, Tomori, Giroud, at Milan specifically, but others in Italy as well. So, yeah, I think we've got to be careful sometimes when we sell players like Loftus-Cheek, because they can be good, to fill in gaps and stuff. But I think ultimately the squad is so big still. There are other players who can also fill roles and fill holes in the squad. So just best of luck to him, really. It's a shame. It's a shame it never really kind of became what we thought it would have been.
It's always that big what if with the Achilles injury, because that would have been under
Sarri, he was absolutely incredible.
He was smashing it. Him and Hazard were unreal that season. I mean, not like hat-trick in the Europa League. He was banging form, doing really, really well. And yeah, again, we're never going to know what would have happened. But I think he'll do really well at AC Milan. I think Serie A could actually suit him quite well. But I think it is right that he leaves. I think it's right for Chelsea. I think it's probably also right for him because, yes, he didn't get loads of minutes, but he still picked up a decent chunk. And ultimately, for the future of Chelsea, it's going to be far more beneficial, rather than Ruben keeping those minutes. It's going to be far more beneficial to give those minutes to a Chukwuemeka, a Santos, or a Caicedo, whichever ones end up staying around, because this is the future. These are the guys you've invested in. This is the route you're going down, which is why I understand when people say we need experience, but I also... it's a bit irritating when people keep banging on about experience, because ultimately you want quality rather than it. Like, experience is helpful, of course.
The thing is it's not necessarily experience you want. You don't always want experience if someone's bad, and their experience is them being not a good footballer. It's about wisdom. And it's about, having that strength of experience and a breadth of experience. And that doesn't necessarily always come with age. It's in a lot of the times it's based, purely on playing time more than anything else.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, which is why, like, when people just say, oh, it's age, it's not. You could be 22 years of age, started playing first team football 17, 18. You could have over 100 games under your belt at senior level. That you've got some half decent experience. Well, not the most experience, but there is experience there. But yeah,
look at someone like Badiashile, for example, 21 over 100 caps for
appearances for Monaco. Yeah,
appearances for Monaco. And so, when he came in, he was relatively assured straight away because he's got that experience and that wisdom. Whereas someone like, I don't know who a good example would be. Someone like Mudryk, maybe not had a huge amount of first team, not much experience, and I don't know if they're the same age or if he's a bit older. But that it goes to show how wide and how varied actually players are alongside their own development path, because not every player is the same.
No, exactly. People always look at development as linear. It's not. Some players burst on the scene like 17, 18, like Michael Owen did, but then they're kind of burnt out by the time they're 25, 26. They've already played their best football. And then
like Wayne Rooney, for example.
Like Rooney as well. Or you've got other players like Drogba, who didn't even turn professional till he was 24. So, it works both ways. Just because, like, Mbappe's been playing first team football since he's 17, it doesn't mean guys that are like 21, 22, 23 that aren't quite here yet aren't going to be very good. Players develop at different rates, and development is not linear, but it's quite hard to explain that point to people because they just don't want to believe it.
Well, generally speaking, everyone should be like going on a similar path, in the same direction. But people are a product of their experiences. People have physical, mental, things that block their way, circumstantial things that get in the way of their development as well. So, like, no one, as much as it seems like everyone's on the same path, in fact, nobody's on the same path.
No, they're not. Everyone's going to develop at their own rate. But yeah, obviously, sad to see Ruben going away. He's been here since he's 8 years old. But ultimately, time moves on. The club moves on. We're going in a different direction now. And, we're looking to invest in the younger players. And, those minutes in the squad could be very beneficial to the development of Chukwuemeka, Caicedo, or Santos. So let's see what happens to that. I mean, I don't necessarily think someone. Do you think a replacement for Ruben will come in? I don't really think he's someone that needs to be replaced in in that way, in terms of we've got to get another like-for-like replacement. I think we've already got players that can take his place within the squad, given the amount of minutes he played. So I wouldn't envisage a Ruben replacement coming in.
No, I wouldn't say so. I think, like I said, he would be third choice right wing backs because we've already brought Gusto in. And in midfield, like you said, you got Chukwuemeka, Santos, Caicedo, all have a potential to be playing in midfield. Probably would be ahead of Ruben this season coming up anyway. So I don't think there's any actual need for his replacement specifically. And not to mention it's another piece of slightly fruitful business from Chelsea actually selling him, because it wasn't he on like 150 grand a week, 120
It was
grand
150k a week. Yeah.
So for a bit part player who then will be shipped out, get a little transfer fee for him, considering it pure profit on the books, and then you bring in someone like a Caicedo or a Chukwuemeka or whatever, who are on lower wages, and I think it's reasonably financially prudent from Chelsea, which is what we've seen so far. It's our financial and our business acumen's been very good, but our footballing decisions have maybe been less so.
Yeah, I'd agree on that. Ruben has gone to AC Milan. It's done, but we just haven't had an official announcement or him holding the shirt up yet. But I mean, yeah, we've done good business. I know people are frustrated by a lack of incomings. Obviously, Jackson's come in. We're just waiting for the official statement on that. That is done. But other than that, the focus has been on outgoings. And I think people, like, whilst obviously it's all the incomings are really exciting, the focus certainly for this part of the window, up until the end of this month, had to have been the outgoings. That was the priority. Yes, if we could get one or two in, that would be great. But we had to clear the decks, get this squad clear out going. That's been years overdue. And fair play to the owners, mate. If I told you sort of like in the last week of June that we'd already shipped out 7-8 players or whatever, I don't think any of us would have really expected that. And there's some names on there that I didn't think we'd be able to get rid of either. I wouldn't have expected us to get rid of Koulibaly before the end of this month. Are you impressed with the business we've done so far in terms of the amount of players we've actually been able to get out the door and the money we've been able to recoup for some of them as well? So I think credit where credit's due for the ownership, the directors, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. So there's two ways to look at this. I think, yes, the owners definitely deserve some credit for some of the outgoings, for sure, especially getting 65 million from Arsenal for Havertz, for example, even 30 million from City for cover, it's pretty good business. I think it's also fair to say that we have got almost extraordinarily lucky as well with the Saudi market.
Oh, yeah,
and we credit to the owners as well for taking advantage of that emergent market as it came about. But at the same time, there was no guarantees that the Saudi market was going to open at all this summer. And so, we're very lucky that it did, because we were at the perfect point for needing to sell a lot of players. We were lucky as well to have players that Saudi wanted. So, yeah, definitely credit to the owners and the negotiators, the footballing minds and stuff at the club, the directors, for getting some of the outgoings out the door and doing it swiftly and quickly. But also, I think a fair acknowledgement that we did get a bit fortunate.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. But I think you kind of make your own luck along the way as well. I think when people were quite critical of Bowley when he was pictured out in Saudi Arabia, thinking, what the fuck's he doing out there? Well, what he was doing was cooking up some great food, having a nice meal, and we come back with 3 players out the door to Saudi. But also, what people don't understand is like when rival fans are like, oh yeah, Chelsea, like how do they force these players out to Saudi? Like those players have got to buy in. Like people think that the power is all the club. It's not. Those players have got to agree to go. They have to want to go. We've seen already with Lukaku. He doesn't want to go to Saudi. We could quite easily get a deal with Lukaku in Saudi for a decent chunk of money to sell him there. He doesn't want to go. Like, you have to have the player buy-in as well. That's what people, I think, either choose to ignore or don't understand. We haven't just sent those guys there. They've chosen to go there. And that's what people aren't understanding or just don't get.
Yeah, I mean, look at someone like Conor Gallagher, for example. Was got in a bid of, what was it, like 40 plus 5 million from Everton, and he didn't want to go. And he said multiple times how much he wants to stay at Chelsea. I think it was that interview with Rio Ferdinand a little while ago. After his Palace loan, about how much he wants to succeed and play for Chelsea. So it's important things to remember that, you know, transfers need three things to go right. You know, one club has to agree, the other club has to agree, and the player has to agree. You know, and sometimes getting all of those three things together can be really difficult. So credit to the owners as well for finding solutions quickly for that as well.
No, absolutely, mate. I agree. Let's move on from this, mate. Let's move on to what have we got cooking up here next. Let's talk about Christian Pulisic then, because obviously there's more interest in him. There's interest from Lyon, but I somehow don't think he would choose to go there. No disrespect to them, but Damasio over in Italy reporting that Chelsea want 25 to 30 million for Pulisic, but AC Milan have informed Chelsea they want to spend 15 million. In the next few days, there'll be more contacts. So, I mean, mate, it's frustrating when you deal with Italian clubs because for whatever reason, they don't really seem to have very much money. Either they're not run very well, or they just decide that they're not prepared to put their hand in their pocket. But they're more than happy to, you know, demand massive fees for their own fucking players.
Yeah, well, they got to make money, haven't they? And that's the lens that they're looking at it through. Italian clubs that aren't doing very well, like a lot of the clubs actually in Europe at the moment, aren't doing so well financially. You know, the Prem's doing well because of its you know, slightly different licensing structures for teams and things like that with the TV rights and whatnot. And the other leagues, I don't believe, don't have that, and so sometimes some clubs go without a little bit more. But it certainly does seem that way, doesn't it? It's very frustrating, but you know, whenever you go to an Italian club and you want a player, they're going to charge you through the nose. But when they want one, they're trying to nickel and dime you at every corner. You know, like we saw with I will probably get onto it, but with Lukaku, where they wanted an option to buy for 25 million and a loan, and it's like, come on, we gave you 100 million for him 2 seasons ago.
Guys.
Like, you know, come on, at least recruit a little bit of that. But you know, at the same time, you know, I would like to see Pulisic go somewhere where he can get game time and stay fit. I'm not sure he's super happy at Chelsea. So, you know, for me, I wouldn't be sad to see him go personally. But again, it's a case of another one where it could have gone really well, but it didn't. And you know, outside of a few sort of really good like periods and like a few good months here and there, he's not really set the world alight. And maybe that's hard because he was kind of coming in Eden Hazard's shadow anyway, you know, when he first came in. So it's tough for him. And I do kind of feel for him a little bit. But at the same time, you know, I think he's just another symptom of showing how much we need this clear out, really.
I mean, we spent 63 million quid on him, like back when Sarri was manager. And like, I was kind of excited. You look at him at Dortmund, and he looked decent, and I thought, you know what, this could be a pretty good signing. But as you say, you know, you look at his time at Chelsea, and you would just have to say that it's been massively underwhelming. The fact that still, when you ask people what's been Pulisic's best form in a Chelsea shirt or best moments, it's fucking Project Restart. Like
lockdown. Yeah,
it's not. Yeah, it's that. And like, yes, the odd moment here and there, and he's made a little bit of an impact at the bench in certain games. But I mean, are you surprised that this hasn't really worked out for Pulisic? Did you expect more from the move? I mean, what were your thoughts on kind of how is? I mean, we're speaking as if he's left. He hasn't left yet, but I think it's quite clear he will. How have you viewed his time here? Because I just look at it as another expensive signing that was just like, well, that could have been so much better, but it just kind of was a massive flatter to deceive.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Flattered to deceive, and poor guy's made out of glass as well. You know, like he's just got absolutely no luck with injuries. I don't know why. Maybe he needs to put on a bit of muscle or what have you to bulk up a little bit. I think he'll benefit from a less physical league. So maybe that's also like holding up a little bit in terms of the Italian league because they are quite physical at times, but he is probably quick enough to get away from most people in the Italian league. So I don't know. It's just, just underwhelming. The fact that we've now like replaced him entirely with you know, Mudryk, for example, is a good example of kind of how it's gone for him at Chelsea. You know, he was kind of supposed to be the next big thing, and he wasn't. And it seems like that happens a lot at Chelsea.
it does, and it does kind of bring in some question, kind of a wider conversation as to why Chelsea seemingly sign so many talented players, yet so many of them don't make a success of themselves at Chelsea. Now,
needs to be studied. I have no idea.
Why is that? Like, obviously, it's not entirely down to the club, and it's not entirely down to the player. I think I think it's fair to say that the constant upheaval and change of managers, change of playing styles, etc., is not a conducive environment for players to perform well. You might be fancied by one manager playing quite a lot. A new manager comes in like 18 months or 12 months later, you're then not fancied. It's hard to get any continuity. Also, I feel that Chelsea perhaps haven't had the best environment that's conducive for players to perform well. But then on the flip side, players when they put the Chelsea shirt on and they step on the pitch, a lot of them just don't seem up to it. Now, are we misprofiling players? Are we misidentifying players? Are we signing the wrong characters? Are we signing guys that can't deal with pressure? Like, I mean, what do you think it is, mate? Because this is not just a short list of one or two players, which can happen to any club. This is a long list of players we've spent a lot of money for that have done very well everywhere else in their careers, except at Chelsea.
I think it's a multifaceted problem. I think Chelsea is a unique environment with a unique kind of pressure. At the same time, like you say, there was for the longest time, there's been constant upheaval and change. And, that hasn't changed recently either. So, players struggle to gain momentum. Maybe then they get a bit of game time in the side, then they get injured, then they're out again. Then there's a new manager who comes in, doesn't fancy them. They spend 6 months on the sidelines. Then they finally get a few games and they get injured again. There's a lot of reasons why players don't succeed here. But I think part of it, has to be said that the club doesn't give people the platform to be able to consistently perform. And I think that's kind of that, and that was fine for the way that we wanted the club to run before, and the results we got from it spoke for itself. But I think now it's hard to win trophies that way without kind of building something with continuity. And so that's kind of why I think we're going down this road a little bit more now with hopefully having a longer term manager and a core like sort of spine and subset of players to work around.
I mean, do you think? I feel that maybe the fans as well perhaps play a slight part in that, because I always feel like the fan base. I'm not saying it's everyone. I'm not saying it's me. It's you. But there are sections of the fan base that, and we've all done it, where players come in, they don't perform well for a couple of games, 2-3 games on a spin or whatever it is. Everyone's on their back saying their shit. Like
everyone wants them dropped.
Players are human. They do see this stuff. They do hear it, and like that's not going to be conducive either. And I know it's hard because when you're not winning and someone's not playing well, it's quite hard to get behind them. But as fans, I think we've got to do a much better job of sticking with players through difficult periods, because hammering a player when they're down and their confidence is low is not going to help them get anywhere near back to rediscovering their best form. And I think we do that. I think we do that way too much as a fan base. We're so quick to criticize a player for not performing well. Like, people are already writing Mudryk off as a flop. It's like, he's been here like
he's on an 8-year deal. He's got a life sentence at Chelsea. Give him another chance.
You can imagine if Jackson comes in and doesn't score 15 goals next season or whatever, people will be like, oh, he's shit. It's like, fuck it, guys, what are we doing? Like, I just feel in football in general, it's not just a Chelsea fan thing, but I just think in football in general, we're so quick to write players off.
I think maybe that's a part of, like, having a big squad is part of an issue with that as well. And like having two great players, or like two very strong players in most positions, means that the second one has a poor game, they can drop out of the team. But again, that's not very conducive to kind of that consistency and building sort of a rhythm with being an athlete, which is really important. And I don't know, it seems like it's just a strange situation to me, really. It just is.
Yeah, I don't think there's, as you said, it is multifaceted. There is not just one simple answer to the question.
Like different players are going to struggle for different reasons. I think someone put it very well in the chat. Said poor recruitment, wrong profiles, not been careful with characteristics, mentality, competitive nature of targets, in addition to questionable structure and manager instability. That's probably about the sum of it. I would agree. Maybe a few other things, small things here and there, but outside of that, that's more or less it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm almost at this part. I know we want to get as much money as possible for these players and try not to get mugged off in any sense, but I would almost take 15 million plus add-ons for Pulisic that might take it to 20. And
he's on a lot of wages. I know it's a priority to get his wages off the books, I'm sure.
And also, like, this is not Bowley and Co.'s money. Obviously, he was bought in under Roman. So, Like we're not. Yes, okay, you could say it's a loss on what Chelsea bought him for, of course, but it's not. It's not a loss to these owners. These owners haven't lost any money on him. So
No, in fact, technically, I mean, like if you're going to be funny about it, they kind of make a profit on anyone who they didn't buy, who they sold. But I don't think the accounting quite works out that way.
no, it probably doesn't. But I mean, what do you think? What do you think is a fair price for him, mate? Considering I think he's got a year left on the contract, do you think 20? I think, to be honest, I think 25 to 30. I always thought it would be tough to get that much. I thought if we could get 25, just take it, because that I think that's a pretty good deal. But I mean, what do you think's fair?
I think 20 and 25 will be a really fruitful deal for somebody. I think he's got, like, Pulisic has got all of the qualities in the world if he can stay fit to be one of the better players in the world. And so, but it's just not going to be at Chelsea. So I think roughly 25 million would be a fair price.
Yeah,
If we could get anything and add-ons, that'd be great. But I don't think we will.
I can't really see it. I can't really see it happening either. Yeah, it's just another one of those to add to the long list. We just have to hope that under this new recruitment team that, we're not going to have. We need to be clear that not every single signing is going to work out. Of course they're not. But I think the idea behind this new recruitment situation, the long-term contract, signing young talented players in Europe, is that if things don't work out, there's still a hope that they're young enough to be sold on to at least make your money back or to make a profit. So there shouldn't be many situations where we're struggling to shift players, particularly with the incentivized wages they're on now as well. They're not on massive wages as a guaranteed chunk of money. So
yeah, that's part of the reason I think a lot of the players are leaving as well. Like, Bowley and Co have kind of communicated to them that either you're going to be on one of these new contracts or you're not going to be here.
Are you surprised at like how quick people seem to be wanting to get out of Chelsea? Like, in terms of, I know we've had to get rid of some of them, but there are also some that perhaps wouldn't have necessarily been thinking of getting rid of. Are you surprised that players are so quick to jump ship at Chelsea, or have kind of had enough?
No, not at all. Especially after the last season we've had, I think there's been a lot of instability, a lot of struggle for everyone. Clearly, it's affected a lot of the players, and some of them are just going to need a change of scenery. To get them back to what they think will help them in their career, and that's. I think that's important for them. I'm not surprised by it, because I think we did really poorly last season, and with the new ownership structure, our squad is bloated. Everyone knew we needed to sell, so and no one will know that more than the players, especially the ones who are thinking about leaving. They're thinking, I'm on the periphery as is anyway, and they need to sell. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
No, it doesn't. No, Nick, now there is any Premier League teams, and there was kind of links with Newcastle a while back, but other than that. And then there was that time when there was links with a loan to United, I think either last summer or in January, potentially, whenever it was, but nothing came of that. Mate, what are your thoughts on Dominic Szoboszlai? Seems to be a perfect player to fill in at 10, 8 and play on the wings, but buyout clause of 59.8. I think you probably negotiate that down with Leipzig potentially. But do you look at someone like Szoboszlai, if Mason Mount were to leave, for example, I think maybe he'd be on the list with Gabri Vega as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on Szoboszlai? Do you know much about him?
I actually don't. I haven't really seen him play at all. But from what people say, they really rant and rave about him as a sort of quite a creative player in the final third. And I don't know, could be a fruitful signing. I'd need to learn more about him.
Yeah, I think there's potential there. Of course, I mean, Gabri Vega is perhaps more fancied by the club. Maybe it
was talk about Florian Wirtz as well. If I remember rightly.
Yeah. Do we want to be signing another guy from Bayer Leverkusen after how the last one turned out?
Or we could just sign another one from Leipzig again. Just keep doing the same thing.
Or we could sign another one from Inter Milan. Maybe we sign Lautaro, and they'll be like, right, just be really shit, slag the club off, and then we'll get you back on loan next season, and then everything's good.
You do wonder if that's what happened with Lukaku. It probably wasn't, but like it most likely wasn't. But if the conspiratorial tinfoil hat amongst us might think so.
Well, it's well. He never wanted to leave in the first place. They just couldn't say no to that money because they were fucked. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. We'll move on.
And it's silly though, because we're 2 years hence that, and they've still got no money. Like, I don't understand what's happening.
As I was saying to you before we went live, Inter had a chance to get 60 million euros from Milan Skriniar. They said no. PSG were like, fine, we'll just take him on a free this summer. They've taken him on a free. So like, it's not like they've not had opportunities to get money. They've had an opportunity to get 60 million euros in. You would have thought that the run to the Champions League final would have got them a decent chunk of cash. I'm not clued up on the finances of the Italian clubs, but it's clear that they are kind of struggling. I think they're going to sell Marcelo Brozovic to Al Nassr for around 23 million euros. There's not that many options, but they want Trevor Chalobah as well from us, reportedly. So I'm not really sure. I don't know where this money's coming from. Are they just dealing in loans? I don't know. I don't really know. I don't really know. I find that Italian clubs are like those teams that go down to like Quick Quid or whatever it used to be called. You get out a massive loan and you get fucked to the interest back.
Yeah,
so
Wonga.com or whatever.
Yeah, Wonga as well. Like one of Mike Ashley's little jobs, that little Wonga thing. And like they're just getting stung with massive interest repayments on their loan. But I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, guys.
Well, there is the bank Monzo, isn't it? And there's an Italian team called Monza. Maybe people are just getting confused.
Monzo, yeah. Guys, I haven't mentioned it so far today. 200 of us locked in across both channels, people. Let's get these likes up. Guys, I've got 70 of us locked in on my channel, 21 likes. That's poor, people. That is poor. We can do much better than this, guys.
That's Kovacic goal scoring numbers.
Guys, that is what we call, that's worse than Lukaku, that's worse than Morata, Higuain. Guys, that's poor. Let's get these likes up on my channel. 70 of us locked in. Let's get this to at least 50 likes, people, minimum. And guys, over on Chelsea Fan TV, let's get those likes up as well. Let's try and get Chelsea Fan TV up over 100 likes. But definitely, guys, on my channel, let's get this to at least 50 likes. There's loads of you in here that definitely haven't clicked that button. It massively helps out. It helps with the algorithm, spreads the stream to more people. So please do click that like button. It takes seconds.
And it's free.
It's free. And it helps out more. Helps out more than you could imagine. And also, guys, whilst you're at it, make sure you subscribe to both channels as well. I'll pop the links to both channels in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to myself and make sure you subscribe to Chelsea Fan TV. We're heading towards 200k over on Chelsea Fan TV, so every new subscriber helps. And we are also heading towards 4,000 subscribers for myself as well. So, guys, please make sure you subscribe to the channels. It'd be greatly appreciated. Right, mate. Let's move away from Christian Pulisic. Let's move from one side of Milan to the other. And this is becoming a running theme over the last few years. Inter Milan and Romelu Lukaku are basically our worst nightmare at this point in time. Inter are likely to propose signing Lukaku on another season-long loan, but this time the option to buy him for 30 million euros, so around 25 million pounds. Chelsea are expected to insist on an obligation rather than an option, but there is a feeling in Italy that a deal can be agreed. Well, that's good. We need a deal agreed. I've always maintained that the only way that a loan deal makes sense, there has to be an obligation at the end of it.
100% has to be an obligation. And we should not be paying a penny over 50% of his wages. Like ideally none at all, or ideally even less.
Yeah,
like it's terrible. Like the way they're trying to nickel and dime for every single thing that they can. If you really want the deal done that badly, put your money on the table.
Yeah, I mean Lukaku's still got 3 years left on his contract. Signed a 5-year contract. Like he's got 3 years left on it. I think he's on over 350k a week as well. So there's no way Inter are going to be paying all those wages. I would imagine we're putting at least 50%, if not more.
Yeah, I know, and it's terrible because we're essentially, giving Inter back their player who we've spent 120 million pounds on, and or 100 million and whatever the wages all add up to as well, astronomically, and then we'll be sending him on loan and paying even more of his wages. It's absolutely crazy. If it was up to me, I would be even more inclined to take the financial hit on Lukaku and have him rot in the under-16s for the remainder of his contract.
Terminate his contract.
I don't think that maybe if there's some kind of mutual deal that could be.
I think with 3 years left, it would cost us way too much. I think there was a year left, we probably would just do it. But with 3 left, I just don't think that's a viable position to be in. But
and someone's put in the chat quite rightly, fire whoever thought that contract up, because what a mess that has turned out to be for us, financially, football wise, just everything. Honestly, like this encapsulates sort of like this deal for me encapsulates sort of the poor Chelsea like financial decisions over the years. All the Higuains and all the Sowells and all the all those kind of players, they're all kind of encompassed by Lukaku.
It still pains me to this day that we passed up on Tchouaméni because apparently he wasn't ready, according to Scott McLaughlin, the chief scout, and Tuchel. And they then decided that, Tchouaméni's not ready, but we signed Saul instead. That to this day, that is a criminal decision. And again, this Lukaku decision. Now, it's easy. Hindsight's easy. Of course it is. But you actually look back at it and you think, well, was this really ever going to work? I know we all got really excited by it. We thought it was going to be the missing piece of the puzzle. This is going to be the goal. This is the guy that's going to get us the goals to win us the Premier League. And when he scored at the Emirates, we were like, this is fucking it, guys. This is it. We're arrived. We're back. Ultimately, though, it's another one of those signings where we just signed the shiny object in football. We couldn't get Harry Kane. So what was the next option on the market? Oh, Lukaku. Didn't think about how he was going to fit in. Didn't think about his attitude. Didn't really think about if he wanted to be here. Roman look. Roman's been great for us. So I don't feel like I'm slagging him off here. But there were things that he got wrong, and this was one of them. He was always a sucker for a massive, big name signing without actually really giving it any thought as to how it's going to work. And if you actually look back at it now, Lukaku in a Thomas Tuchel system was never going to work. But I don't understand what we thought about how he thought this was going to work. It wasn't a case of thinking about how Lukaku's going to fit in. It was just like, right, we're just going to make this work. And whatever you do, you just need to do it. And it just didn't work. I mean, mate, can you believe how bad this has been, by the way, as well? I know we're a couple of years in now, but you look back at it and you just think, I cannot believe how badly this has turned out to be.
Yeah, I think at the time, if you had told me, at the day we signed Lukaku, how everyone would think of him in 2 years and everything that had happened, I think I'd have a heart attack, because it's just like, the way he's been towards the club and everything like that, it's just been not on. It's not Chelsea, and it's I think it's best for all parties to find a solution. But personally, I wouldn't be averse to letting him rot in the academy. Just to let him, just to prove to other teams that either you're going to pay money or the player who you want's going to suffer. Oh, and to tell the player as well, either you're going to convince them to pay us the money or you're going to suffer. Because it's absolutely criminal. What the amount of money Inter have made out of Lukaku from us, absolutely criminal.
It is mad. Nick, there are Saudi teams interested in Lukaku, but he doesn't want the move. So that's a no-goer, unfortunately. So you can't force players out of the club. So that's unfortunately.
I genuinely do wonder if he wants to stay in Italy and he doesn't want to go to Saudi because of Megan the Stallion, who he is apparently dating. It could be. You never know.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, apparently Koulibaly's been trying to work on him to come to Saudi, but I just don't think that's the situation. But I do feel, though, for Lukaku, if Chelsea can't agree with Inter, then you might not have a choice. But ultimately, I think it's, regardless of what we think about Lukaku, it is in Chelsea's best interests to agree a deal with Inter. Obviously, not any old deal, but it is in there. Even if the obligation was, say, if they want an option to buy for 30 million euros, but they would change their mind if the obligation was at 25, then I'd actually do it. I just want to wash our hands of the situation, because, like the Mason Mount situation, which we will get onto shortly, this Lukaku situation is something that we just seem to kick a season down the line every time. There needs to be an ending point in sight for this situation, because otherwise, every summer for the next 3 years until his contract runs out, we're just going to keep talking about the same fucking thing. Is he?
Yeah, and we're going to keep getting strung along by Inter. Oh, another year alone, another year of a loan, another year of a loan. It will never end. Oh no, now we'll get him on a free. It will never end. So we've just got to either wash our hands of him or just punish him severely and send him to the under 8s.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest though, mate, it needs to be sorted this week, because we've got, obviously, Pochettino starts work on Saturday. Then a week Tuesday, so today, this time next week, the first players will start coming back in kind of dribs and drabs from their summer holidays for pre-season. And he's going to be one of them.
Well, I do wonder if any players will be told not to return. If any players, because there was talks about that with Koulibaly. Koulibaly was told, probably don't bother coming to pre-season. Fine, because we're going to be finding a way out for you. Now, for him, it happened quite quickly, but it might be the case with Lukaku as well, where they actually say, "Don't come for pre-season. We're trying to build something here, and you're going to ruin it."
Doesn't he legally have to report for pre-season?
I don't know. I don't know if you can put a player on gardening leave or whatever. I have no idea.
No, I don't know either, but it's getting to the point now where next week Lukaku will have to return to Cobham for pre-season.
Oh, if I see him in a Chelsea shirt this year, it's absolutely it's gonna
Oh,
ruin my year.
mate,
I think.
I'd quite like to see anyone in a Chelsea shirt this. You haven't even got a fucking shirt to wear yet. So I mean, at this rate, we could just be in bibs.
Yeah, we'll just be playing shirts versus skins in the Prem.
But I say last thing on Lukaku, this mate, it has to be this week because otherwise he's returning to Cobham for pre-season next week. So
I know whatever happens, it just has to end. Whatever
Yeah.
ends up happening, it just has to end. And that's probably a good time to segue onto Mason Mount. Speaking of, it has to end.
Mate, could go to Strasbourg.
Oh yeah, that's the other option. Send him to Strasbourg.
Send him to Strasbourg. Let's send him packing to Strasbourg, people.
On loan,
might as well.
With an option to buy.
It's one of those that again divides opinion. People are sick of talking about it, but it's Chelsea news. It's topical, and we would be doing ourselves, well, not ourselves, but it would be doing ourselves a disservice not to talk about this. Martin Ziegler in the Times. Man United will not budge on their 55 million offer for Chelsea's Mason Mount. So it appears clear that they're sticking to their guns, and that was their final offer for him. Chelsea, of course, want 65 million. They're set for crucial talks this week. Mate, what have you made of all this? Because it's been so public. It's been drawn out for 9 months at least. We've had this since before the World Cup. It's just a one big mess that only Chelsea could seemingly find themselves in. But I suppose at least we've not done a United with David De Gea where he'd agreed to sign a new contract. He signed it, and then the club wouldn't sign it, and so then they've pulled it. I suppose at least we've not done that.
I mean, we've done everything but that, I imagine.
Yeah.
It's I just kind of want this saga to be over. It doesn't matter to me whether he goes to United, whether we get 55 million or 65 million. I prefer 65 million personally. But I just want something, a solution that will benefit all parties. If Mount wants to stay, then let him have a chat with Pochettino. Let's sort of contract out and let's have him stay. If he doesn't want to stay, then there's no reason to be holding up this with Man United any further. It does make me laugh that they said they were going to walk away from the deal though, and then they didn't. Because it's just funny, isn't it?
But then we're also going to look pretty stupid, right? If the bid that we rejected, we then turn around and be like, "Oh, actually, yeah, we will accept this bid." Like
maybe, yeah.
Someone's going to look pretty stupid. But
so yeah, someone will, and with how they've been the last year and how we've been the last year, I think the money would be on us, but hopefully it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, mate, what have you made of it all though? It's just like it's just been so weird. I mean, I think it was Saturday night we had it where with the Man United had briefed the Times saying that they were dropping their interest in Mount and they were going to pursue Caicedo instead. Mount's camp then briefing that actually he never wanted to leave Chelsea in the first place. And then you got Chelsea then briefing that actually, Bayern Munich are interested in the player as well, and we'll sell him there for less if you don't put the money on the table. It was just a mad round of PR from all parties involved.
I've never known a football story like this where actually like each party are specifically briefing the media things to drive the narrative. I've never seen anything quite like it.
No, it's been a strange one. I mean, who do you put this down to? Because I know people just love to blame Mount, and people will just pick a narrative that suits their agenda on the matter. But I mean, if we try and look at this objectively as an overall kind of situation as what's happened here, I think it's fair to say that probably would you agree with me, mate, that only offering nothing since February and only a 1-year extension is not exactly the actions of a club that wants you to stay. If that was like that I think is perfectly fair, and you can understand why Mount would be pissed off about that and not feel valued by the club and not feel like they want him, because that is not the actions of a club that want you to stay. And you can understand why he's looked at his options, because he's got to be thinking, well, hang on a second, these guys have offered me nothing since February, and in February they offered me a 1-year extension. Like, who in their right mind at 24 years of age is going to sign a 1-year extension? You're just not.
It doesn't make any sort of like financial sense, sort of security-wise, career-wise, anything like that. I think kind of what's then, like, from what I've been able to piece together, it was that back when Bowley was negotiating the contracts and things for the new players, him and Mount came to some, or like him and the club, Mount and the club came to some kind of agreement about a contract, and Mount said he would sign it after the World Cup, and that was kind of the done thing, and everyone was happy with that. Then what happened in January is the new football sort of directors have come in, had a look at that contract and gone, "Ooh, that's a bit much," and looked at a lot of the contracts and gone, and gone, "Oh my God, like why are you giving so much money to these players? Like it's not worth that at all." And so what then happened is they retracted that offer because and Winstanley took over the negotiations. And so Mount's back to square one and feeling undervalued because he recently had a contract that he wanted to sign, and then the club was kind of pulled the rug out from under him. Now, at the same time, I understand what it's like to feel, undervalued. And it's not great, but at the same time, I think there could have been a bit more maturity as well. I think from all sides on this, about finding a solution that works for everybody, rather than. I think it's kind of like it's bordering on childish now. I'm kind of bored of it, and
it's so boring.
Yeah, like it's I don't know. I hope a solution's found soon. Like you say, I don't think anyone's necessarily all 100% to blame or at fault, but I think everyone could have done better.
I just still can't get my head round it, and as to how we even arrived at this situation. Like as I've said many times before, this should have been the easiest contract.
It should have been wrapped up after the Champions League.
Yeah, this should have been the easiest contract of the lot to sort out, and for some reason they just can't seem to come to an agreement. And yes, Ornstein. I think David Ornstein reported back in March that they were going to pick talks back up again in the summer. It doesn't really look like any of those talks have really started again, if we're being totally honest. I mean, one train of thought that I've had, I've got a feeling, and this is just a hunch, I haven't really got any evidence to support this. I think Mount's been receiving a lot of really shit advice from people around him, like some terrible advice, which
I agree.
Which is not hell. I don't know what advice he's been receiving, but we've seen that he's changed agents, etc. I think his dad. I don't know.
His dad's really heavily involved.
I think his dad's having perhaps a negative influence on him.
I don't know. I think his dad is driving for him to leave, and Mason isn't sure. I think that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. Is that like is that Mason's dad is definitely pushing for a move, and on the basis that his son feels undervalued at the club, and that's that's a perfectly logical way to look at that. But I think Mount himself might not be as certain about leaving, especially with the briefing that's come out recently about how he never wanted to leave in the first place. So, I mean, I guess the problem is with this whole story is it's your word against theirs, and it's their word against someone else's, and everyone's just speaking over each other, and like there's no real sort of consistent narrative at all.
I'll be honest. The biggest problem has been a complete lack of clarity, and whatever way this ends up finishing, I don't think we'll ever get the full truth as to what's happened here. I think once Mount signs for United, I actually don't. If he does sign for United, I don't actually think we'll ever hear his side of the story as to what actually happened with Chelsea.
I reckon we'll eventually hear it in like a book or something, like in 10 years.
But certainly not in the next few years. I don't think we'll hear any of it. I would imagine like with managers when they get sacked from a job or they leave a job, they're not actually. I don't think they're allowed to talk about the reasons why they were dismissed. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, hey, just on that, when was the last time anyone heard from Graham Potter? Has he been,
I don't know. I hear he's on a beach in Strasbourg. Oh, I've said too much.
But yeah,
he's not going to Strasbourg.
No, but it is like I just don't think we'll hear as to why this has happened. But
no, and to be honest, at the end of the day, I'm not sure it necessarily even matters. I think the relationship's broken down to a certain degree so far. And whether Mount stays or goes is kind of inconsequential at this point. One thing I would say is that, especially because we've already sold players, if we really desperately needed the money, it'd be more important. But one thing I will say is it's very confusing to me, like the different stories coming from all sides on this. And so as a result, it's really hard to figure out what actually Mount thinks and what the club think. And so it's, I don't know. The only other thing as well is, if you're looking next season, you've got the likes of Nkunku's going to be playing in the 10.
Yeah.
Mounts wouldn't play in the pivot, and he'd be behind Nkunku in the pecking order. So would he, if he was going to play in under Pochettino and it is that 4-2-3-1, he's going to be forced out wide again. Now, then we've got Madueke and Mudryk and Sterling and everyone else. Are we even going to see? Would we even see him that often anyway?
Yeah. That's also true. But another mad thing is that I wouldn't even rule out him starting the first game of the season against Liverpool. That's how I could see it. That's how ridiculous this whole situation is. But I mean, at this point in time, mate, obviously, I don't know what they're going to be discussing when they meet face to face, if they do meet face to face, Chelsea and United, because Chelsea are in a position where we actually don't need to sell now. We've raised the required amount of money we need to raise by the end of the month through other player sales, because the Kai Havertz still playing a massive part in that. We don't actually need to sell Mason Mount for financial reasons. So,
no.
Like the club, I'm pleased to see the club holding firm in their valuation. If we had to sell him, I think they probably would have accepted that third bid. But we're holding to our guns. We've been very clear from the start, and I'm not really sure what can be discussed in this meeting, because someone's going to have to stand down. United are just going to have to walk away. You look pretty stupid when you make a threat and then you don't follow through with it, like United have done. Oh, we're walking away. This is our final offer. Actually, this offer's still on the table if you change your mind. And then we're looking at it like, if we rejected the offer, we then turn around and then suddenly accept the offer, then we look silly. We look pretty stupid as well. So, I mean, this, again, like Lukaku, this has to be resolved this week. We cannot be going into Pochettino starting the preparations for pre-season, heading out to the States and whatnot in the next couple of weeks, with the Mason Mount, won't he be staying saga hanging over us and disrupting the preparations for pre-season, of which is a pre-season ahead of a really, really important season for the club. But if Mount does stay, even if he doesn't sign a new contract, do you think he needs to come out and say something before the season starts?
It would depend. I think like you say, it depends whether he signs a contract, or it depends like what happens. If he decides to stay for the season, I would appreciate some clarity from his side on like knowing, like he probably can't talk about what happened, but at least talking about what his intentions are for the future. And that would be beneficial for all parties, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. But let's wait and see what happens on that. By the way, guys, keep getting these likes up. 70 of you locked in on my channel. Still only 38 likes, people. We can do much better than this. It has improved slightly, but let's get those likes up, guys. Let's get this.
Listen, I'm not joking with you all. It's free. Like, it's actually free. It costs you literally nothing. Like Charlie's stream, it's a good product. Yeah. He does good stuff. Right? You guys are Chelsea Fan TV as well. I remember I watched Chelsea Fan TV growing up, and it's something that is very close to my heart. So it's a bit weird also now being on it. But like the stream, guys,
nice.
That's all it takes.
One little click of the thumb button, people. Let's get this to 50 likes on my channel. Let's get Chelsea Fan TV up over 100 likes. Let's get it towards 150 if we can, people. It does massively help out. Also appreciate each and every single one of you in the chat as well. These streams wouldn't be anything without you interacting, so I do really appreciate it. But yeah, a little smash of the like button in return would be massively appreciated, as would subscribing to both channels as well. So guys, if you're locked in now and you're not subscribed to Chelsea Fan TV, or you're not subscribed to myself either, please make sure you do subscribe to both channels, guys. It'll take you seconds, and it's one click of a button for you, but for us, it means a lot, and it goes a lot further than that. So yeah, if you could subscribe to both channels, that would be massively appreciated. Both links are now in the chat, people. So please do subscribe. Let's move away from Mason Mount, because it takes up a lot of energy, a lot of time, and we kind of just go around in circles on it, because no one really's got a fucking clue what's going on. Very briefly, kind of last couple of things to round out, mate. Chelsea reportedly have now fully agreed personal terms with Moises Caicedo. Fabrizio Romano confirming that last night. Now they're going to talk with Brighton over the fee. Now, this is the easy bit to sort out, the personal terms. People always get really excited. All personal terms are agreed.
Yeah, it's not hard. We're just going to tell you what we're going to pay you.
One personal terms are the easiest part to agree, and two, you can agree personal terms with more than one club. And I'm not saying this is the case, but just because he's agreed personal terms with us, it doesn't mean that, if someone else were to come in later on, that he wouldn't also agree personal terms with them. So there's that to sort out as well. How difficult, mate, do you envisage these negotiations with Brighton being? Because I don't think Chelsea aren't going to want a situation where it's going to take multiple multiple bids to get this deal done. It's not going to be a one and done. It very rarely is in football transfers, but this first bid has got to be within touching distance of what Brighton are looking for. We cannot afford to be going back and forth with 2, 3, 4 bids and allow other players to come into the game, because Brighton will want more clubs to come in. They'll want a bidding war to try and drive the price up. Yes, they might have an asking price in mind, but they'll want more parties to become interested. And right now, they're kind of at the front of a one-club queue. It's just us there. But if City get Rice, Arsenal will come back into the race. United might suddenly pull some money out their arse. Who knows? So, I mean, this is great and all well and good that we've agreed personal terms. But whilst we're at the front of this queue and leading the race, we have got to make sure we get this done. I mean, how difficult do you envisage these Brighton negotiations being?
Difficult because it's Brighton. Brighton fans are great. They're very passionate about their team. I want to say that first and foremost, because last time I slagged off Brighton fans.
You got a bit of a spot of bother, didn't you, mate?
I got absolutely roasted on Twitter because I wasn't very nice to the Brighton fans, and they weren't very nice back. And I'll fully take that. But yeah, like I think it's going to be really difficult because Brighton are they're a very well run club, and they drive a hard bargain for the negotiations in the way that they sell. The key things will be, one is the timing, like you said, because the longer we leave it, the more likely someone else is going to come in for him. The other thing is if Brighton are going to insist in some way on Levy Colwill, that's going to be a big stumbling block. If they won't sell us Caicedo without also in some way getting a loan or a deal or whatever for Levy Colwill, it's not worth doing. And we'll have to walk away at that point. And it's dangerous because Caicedo is approaching kind of the only midfield target we desperately 100% need to get this summer. So it's going to be a difficult negotiation. So I would almost say, if you're Chelsea, go in high on purpose. Maybe not too high, but I think it's going to take minimum 85 million to get this over the line.
Yeah, and I actually think that's a fair price. I would expect Chelsea, if it's 80, if Brighton want 85 million, I think if we went in with an offer of 75 plus 5 as an opening offer, I think that's a very fair and a very strong first offer. But I mean, do you worry that if we seem to be hanging about, we seem to be waiting for all these sales to be officially gone through and all that? Are you worried that we could mess this up or that we're taking too long with it? Or do you think, actually, do you know what, let's just trust the people in charge and there's a reason as to why we've not kind of made our move yet?
No, there is a reason, because we've been focusing on the outgoings. This will come soon enough. People just have to be patient.
Yeah. I think that's probably a fair synopsis of the
situation. As well, what I've noticed is during the transfer window, nothing will change from day to day. Absolutely nothing will change from one day to the next, and people can be really happy one day and really upset the next day with no change, with absolutely no change at all. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's the moon or something. I don't understand.
Yeah, it is a strange one, but yeah, this Caicedo deal does absolutely need to get done. There's no two ways about it. We do need to try and crack on with this as quickly as possible. But again, we just got to be patient, and patience and Chelsea fans is not something that goes together very well at all. If anything, we're probably the least patient fan base going. I mean, obviously, I don't really follow other fan bases as closely as this one, but we do come across as very impatient. Just slight side tangent. Why do you have any idea why it takes clubs so long to prepare a bid? What is the processes behind putting a bid together?
I'd be really interested to know, because it can't just be easy, as easy as just ringing up and making an offer, because otherwise Bowley would have done it already. I think there's got to clearly be some kind of bureaucracy that goes through. You probably got to make sure that, because you're selling a multi-million-pound asset, there's got to be tax involved and all the rest of it as well. You've got to have lawyers draft everything up. There's a lot of bureaucracy. You might have to register stuff with the Premier League. You have to let people know. It's not as easy as just being do you want 80 million for him? And they go, yeah. And then you go, here you go. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, someone just gets their phone out and transfers it over, over online banking. There you go, lads.
Yeah, there you go. 80 million just sent with your sort code.
I know we're joking about it, but there are people that actually think that's how it works, or that's
Yeah,
how it
but the thing is, it's one of those things where like you kind of just are left to assume how it all actually works because nobody knows.
No,
Because there must be some kind of big bureaucracy type thing involved. Because, like I said, if it was easy enough to just ring up, make an offer, and just do it, Bowley
because
would have
surely,
bankrupted the club
yeah.
already.
But with United, they've essentially waited a week between their bids. If there was a no from Chelsea on that first bid, then why couldn't have another bid just gone in the next day? Like, do you know what I mean? There must be.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
it's all part of negotiations and tactics
Yeah,
as well. Like when they'll hold them, knowing when to hold them fold, right? So
yeah. I mean,
that's
I
also
think.
part of it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, business is down to it as well. You probably don't. That's probably not how you negotiate business and whatnot. But I don't know. It's funny though, because you basically got like a week between bids. Like someone will put a bid in, and then you have to wait another week for the next bid to go in.
Yeah, there'll be
it's
some reason. Maybe there could even be like rules in place around not being able to put bids too close together. I don't know. Like
I
there
would
might be.
I would love to find out.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd
Well,
love to know why. I
does
mean,
anyone in the chat know? Tell us.
yeah,
Right in the chat.
if anyone in the chat knows, but I'll just be fascinated to know because, as you say, like it's there must be a reason for it because otherwise you would just ring up a couple of days later and be like, right, we're going to offer you this much instead. Except
Yeah.
on deadline day, that's a fair point.
Yeah, that's a good. That's what I think it is. It's there's so much like administrative and bureaucratic stuff to do. That's why deadline day is always a mad scramble because you're doing a week's worth of work in a day effectively.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's also fair, mate. The last thing I wanted to talk about very briefly was the future of Callum Hudson-Odoi, another forgotten man, another guy that still only 22 years of age, which is mad. It feels like he's been around for years.
Again, it's like what we were talking about earlier with experience, right?
Yeah, he's been around for years. I don't think he's gonna. Obviously, if he was going to go on loan again, then he would have to sign a new contract. I don't think he's going to sign a new contract. I think he's on 150k a week. He's not going to get that again.
No.
Just briefly, mate, what have you thought of the whole thing with Callum? Because I just think it's been a massive shame. Another one of those what ifs, like another guy that was so highly rated in the academy. Did really well under Maurizio Sarri. Did pretty well under Thomas Tuchel in that first season. I remember he started 7, 8, 9 games in a row. Tuchel seemed to really like him. And then once he got subbed off after coming on against Southampton, it kind of went down the shitter from there. And obviously the loan spell at Leverkusen didn't really work out either. And I suppose it's just another one of those where you just have to put it down to unfortunate circumstance with the injury. And whilst he's been out injured, the club have kind of moved on. And there's not really a space for him anymore. I mean, it is a bit of a shame though, because he was so good. And I think, a move somewhere like one of these clubs mentioned here, I'd be disappointed if he went to Saudi, if I was being honest.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's still a kid. He's got a long way left in his career yet. I think he'll be okay wherever he goes. It's a shame it didn't work out at Chelsea, like you said, really talented youngster. I mean, you could even argue for him to just be coming in and be like a backup in the squad, but I'm not entirely sure he would want to do that. He'd need to sign another deal, like I'm not sure entirely. I think he probably wants a new scenery for himself, wants a bit of a fresh start away from Chelsea. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in Saudi because obviously the wages there are much, much higher, but also I think it would be prudent to see him in a place like a Fulham or a Brentford or someone like that, still in London because he's a London boy, but sort of one of the lower end clubs where he's going to play and still be a really young promising player for another team. It's mad when you think about it. What was it we turned down Bayern's bid of? Was it like 100 million? Like
I think it was 70
80 million, something like that. It was high, wasn't it?
Someone picked me up on this because I made a mistake. Apparently, right, it wasn't 70 million up buy. It was a loan with an obligation to buy at the end of it for like 70 million pounds or something. Like, it's kind of mad that Hudson-Odoi's stocks were that high when he was like 19 or 20 that Bayern Munich were prepared to drop 70 million on him.
And now you couldn't pay someone to take him now. Like it's crazy how quickly a career can kind of like change as a footballer, and I think that's why a lot of them like make quite the swift decisions that they do and try and make the best deals for their careers, because ultimately, in comparison to anyone else's career, a footballer's career is really short. Yeah. So it's about trying to make do the best you can in that short time you're given.
I mean, he's still got 10 plus years in the game
easily,
which which is kind of mad as well. I mean, is there any part of you that thinks, I mean, as a backup winger, I'd keep him? Look, I can understand the thought behind it, but what I would say is that obviously we've got Mudryk, Madueke, Sterling, right? You could say, oh, we needed a fourth, right? But actually, I think with the fact that Jackson, Nicholas Jackson, the fact that Jackson can play wide if needed and Kunku can play wide if needed as well, those two players, that's probably better use to put them wide occasionally rather than investing in another winger. I mean, obviously Callum's already on the books, but I don't really, mate, is there any, I mean, you'd have to sign a new contract though, because I think he's out of contract.
That's the thing. He'd have to sign a new contract, and it would be a pay cut. And he's on 150 grand a week at the moment. Do you want a player on 150 grand a week being a bench warmer? It's the same kind of thing we were saying about Loftus-Cheek, except he's a bit younger. So it's a tough one. But I personally, I don't think there's any need really to kind of prolong this saga any longer. Really, I think I think it should be time for everyone to move on. We've got young players, we can't hold on to absolutely everyone, and not everyone will succeed and make it at Chelsea. And maybe, unfortunately, as painful as it is, we might have to accept that is the case for Hudson-Odoi.
Yeah, it's kind of mad. It's the same age as Mudryk.
And when you think about exactly what we were saying about experience earlier, those are two players who are the same age, but Mudryk has nowhere near as much experience in sort of first team senior football as Hudson-Odoi does.
No. It's just another one of those what ifs, but as you say, there's no point just kind of clutching onto it. It's best.
I could see him doing well somewhere else. Like if he went to a Villa, or if he went to a Fulham or a Brentford, I could see him doing really, really well there.
I'd do nothing more than that as well for him to
revive his career, go somewhere else for 60 million after that. You can kind of almost see the resurgence from before it's even happened. But I think to do that, he's got to take a bit of a sideways step in his career first. And that's proving to be the stumbling.
He's got to rebuild himself. He needs to go somewhere where he's going to be loved, where he's going to be a big player in the team, and where he's going to play pretty much every week. That's what he needs. And if
Strasbourg,
and that's what he needs. So he will have to take a step down to a bit of a lower club. But as you say, rebuild yourself 2-3 years at another club, and then obviously maybe he gets a move to a bigger club when he's 25, 26. There's still so long left in his career. Yeah. But guys, I think we've pretty much got through everything tonight. A massive thank you to each and every single one of you in the chat for getting involved and tuning in. I really appreciate you guys watching every night. It means a lot to me. Thank you for tuning in as always. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Guys, on your way out, make sure you smash the likes on both streams. Final call out for you to get these likes up, people. I feel like a fucking bingo caller, but we're at it again, guys. We're on 48 likes on my channel. Let's get this to 50 minimum. Try and get it to 60, guys, on your way out. So please do smash the likes on your way out. Please smash the likes on Chelsea Fan TV as well. And guys, for the final time tonight, you'll be glad to hear. Please make sure you subscribe to both channels, guys. If you haven't subscribed to Chelsea Fan TV or you haven't subscribed to my personal channel, it takes seconds and it's greatly appreciated by myself and everyone over at Chelsea Fan TV as well. So please, on your way out, take the second to subscribe to both channels. Smash the likes. Ollie, thanks so much for your time as always, mate. Guys, make sure you check out Ollie on Twitter on the screen and linked in the description below. And check out his podcast at The Bridge Pod. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, there's also a link to it in the description. So please go and check those things out. Mate, thanks so much for your time as always. Guys, I'll be back again tomorrow with another daily Chelsea transfer update. Let's see what news we have in store for us then. But until then, guys, smash the like, subscribe to both channels. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Up the Chelsea.